You know that feeling when you walk into a room full of strangers?
Oh, absolutely.
And suddenly it's like you've completely forgotten how to be a human being.
Like you've never spoken a language in your life.
Exactly. You're just standing there. Maybe you're holding a lukewarm beverage as a kind of physical shield across your chest.
Classic drink shield.
Yeah.
Right.
And your mind just goes utterly, completely blank. I mean, you look around and you see groups of people chatting effortlessly, laughing, exchanging what looks from the outside like just absolutely brilliant banter.
While you're just frozen in place.
Frozen, yeah. It's this universal bone-deep dread, the dread of the opening line, just having to somehow turn that heavy, awkward silence into a meaningful conversation.
It is a profound, almost paralyzing sensation, honestly. And what's endlessly fascinating is that if you feel that way, and I think literally everyone listening right now can picture a moment where they felt exactly that, you are in incredibly good company.
Oh, for sure.
Because we often assume that this fear of small talk, this anxiety of the first spoken word, is something that only introverts or socially awkward people experience.
Right, like it's a personality flaw or something?
Exactly. But that is a complete myth.
Huh?
The brightest, most successful individuals on the planet, top executives who can comfortably address a room of hostile stockholders or brilliant, world-renowned artists, they often feel like lost children when they're faced with just casual chatter.
Wait, really? Like who?
Well, Pablo Casals, the legendary cellist, he complained of lifelong stage fright that actually extended into social gatherings.
Wow.
Yeah, and Carly Simon famously curtailed her live performances because of it. There's even an anecdote about a famous singer who insisted the words to a song he'd been singing for 40 years be displayed on a teleprompter, just in case social fear completely froze his memory.
40 years. That is wild.
It just shows that it's a deeply human, deeply biological reaction.
Yeah. Honestly, that is incredibly comforting. I mean, the idea that someone could be an absolute titan of industry, someone who makes $1-million decisions before breakfast, and they still, hide in the bathroom at a networking event because they don't know how to say hello to a stranger by the cheese board.
It completely levels the playing field for all of us.
It really does. And that brings us exactly to the mission of our deep dive today. We are exploring a really pivotal section of Leil Lowndes' work, How to Talk to Anyone.
A fantastic book.
It really is. And we are crossing the bridge today, that delicate, terrifying bridge where silence actually becomes speech.
Right, moving past the nonverbal.
Exactly. Because the core question we're looking at isn't, how do I impress someone with my staggering intellect? It's much simpler and honestly much harder. It's just, how do I give the conversation a natural place to begin?
That framing is crucial because the text is beautifully built in layers, and we have to briefly set the stage here. You really can't understand the spoken strategies without remembering the silent ones. The author notes that more than 80% of someone's first impression of you is formed before a single word is even spoken.
80%, that's huge.
It's massive. Your body, your posture, your facial expressions, they are essentially shrieking your autobiography before your vocal cords even vibrate.
Okay, let's actually unpack that really quickly for you listening, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Because in our last deep dive, we talked about how you're essentially a walking, talking hologram of your own personality.
Yes, the silent signals.
Right. We talked about Bob Grossman, the caricature artist.
Ah, yes, the artist who drew for Forbes and Newsweek. He had this unique gift for capturing the absolute essence of luminaries, right? Like the boyishness of Clinton, the awkwardness of George Bush, the pride of FDR.
And when asked how he did it, he didn't say he researched their histories or read their biographies.
He just looked at them.
He just looked at them. He looked at the angles of their bodies.
Because the world is spinning so fast, right? People are bombarded with multiple stimuli every second. So the human brain just must form quick judgments to survive. We take a mental snapshot of you, and that snapshot is the data we deal with for a very long time.
And we talked about how to engineer that snapshot, like the flooding smile. Remember Missy, the woman who took over her family's corrugated box company?
Oh, the CEO. Yes, that's a great example.
I love that story. She was naturally bubbling, right? Like an incurable giggler. But when she became a CEO, she didn't lose her warmth. She She delayed her smile.
Right, because of the credibility aspect.
Exactly. She read a study showing that women in corporate life who were slower to smile were actually perceived as more credible. Think of like Margaret Thatcher or Indira Gandhi.
So instead of a quick grin,
Right. Instead of flashing an immediate cheap grin at everyone who walked in the room, she would look at the person for a second, just soak in their persona, and then let a big, warm smile flood over her face and overflow into her eyes.
and that split-second delay convinced people the smile was genuine and meant only for them. It gave her this rich, deep, sincere cachet.
It totally changed the power dynamic of the room without her saying a single word.
And then there was the intense eye contact technique.
Oh man, sticky eyes. This is the one that still haunts me a little bit, in a good way.
It's powerful.
Mm.
The author shared that story of her family's Haitian housekeeper, Zola.
Oh, right, the cat.
Yes, she refused to be left alone with the Siamese cat because she felt the cat was looking right through her, like seeing her soul.
Which is terrifying.
Well, in some cultures, staring is seen as sorcery or disrespect. But in the Western business world, exaggerated eye contact is a massive advantage. There was a study at a Boston center where they had opposite-sex individuals converse.
And half were secretly instructed to count the number of times their partner blinked, right?
Exactly the point of the study's design,
Yeah.
which forces you to maintain incredibly intense eye contact. You can't look away if you're counting blinks. And afterward, the subjects who were stared at reported significantly higher feelings of respect and fondness for the people who had simply been counting their blinks.
Just because they were staring at them.
Yes. The physiological response to being deeply observed is often interpreted as being deeply valued. The technique is to pretend your eyes are glued to your conversation partner with, like sticky, warm toffee. You don't break eye contact even after they finish speaking.
You just stretch the gooey toffee until the tiny string finally breaks.
Okay, so we've got the posture, we've got the flooding smile, we've got the sticky toffee eyes. Our physical presence is absolutely dialed in. We look like a somebody.
We do.
But now, and this is the bridge we're crossing today, we have to open our mouths. Words finally enter the room. And this is where the panic sets in. So what on earth do we actually say?
To answer that, we actually have to look at the evolutionary biology of what is happening in your body at that exact moment.
Oh, I love the biology side of this. It's so important because before we can look at what to say, we must understand the physical panic of speaking first. Science is beginning to recognize that this fear isn't just a character flaw, it is a profound chemical reaction rooted in our survival instincts.
Okay, let's get into the biochemistry. What is actually happening in my brain when I'm staring at that group of people by the buffet table, just trying to think of an opening line?
Well, your neurons are communicating through neurotransmitters, right?
Mhm.
And when you are faced with the threat of approaching a group of strangers, your brain manufactures an excessive amount of a neurotransmitter called norepinephrine.
Yeah, pain brain.
Yes, it is a chemical cousin of adrenaline. It was literally the fight or flight juice.
Wow.
From an evolutionary standpoint, early humans lived in small, tight-knit tribes. Approaching an unknown tribe or trying to infiltrate a new social circle was quite literally a matter of life and death.
Because if you were rejected, you were cast out into the wilderness to die.
Exactly. And your brain hasn't updated its software to realize you're just at a real estate mixer in a Marriott hotel.
So my brain is reacting to a casual networking event the exact same way it would react to a saber-toothed tiger stepping out from behind the hors d'oeuvres.
That aligns perfectly with the physiological symptoms we all feel. And the text provides a wonderful, very vulnerable personal history from the author to illustrate this.
Oh, right.
As a child, just walking into a kindergarten room made her want to run and hide under a table. As a preteen in a boarding school, her legs would turn to spaghetti every time she had to converse with a male.
Spaghetti legs are real.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
But the most illustrative example is the incredibly relatable story of calling Eugene for the high school prom.
Oh, I have to tell the Eugene story. I think anyone who has ever had to make a nerve-wracking phone call will feel this in their bones. So, the author has to invite a boy to her school prom, and the entire selection of available males lives in the dormitory of her brother's school.
Right.
She only knows one resident, Eugene. She'd met him at summer camp the year before. So 2 weeks before the dance, the sweaty palms set in. 1 week before, rapid heartbeat. Finally, 3 days before the call, breathing just becomes difficult.
She is having a sustained, debilitating physiological response to the mere idea of initiating a conversation.
Exactly. And her solution to this biological hijacking is just fascinating. She tries to outsource the conversation to a piece of paper.
Yes, she writes a script.
She rationalizes that the critical moment will be easier if she just reads from a piece of paper. So she writes down, "Hi, this is Leil. We met at camp last summer, remember?" And she even programs in a pause where she prayed he would say
This is
yes.
very methodical.
Then she continues, "Well, National Cathedral School's prom is this Saturday night, and I'd like you to be my date." I mean, it is so clinical. It's like she's programming a computer.
But the body always betrays the script when norepinephrine is involved.
Always.
When she finally picks up the receiver, she is clutching the phone so hard her knuckles are white. Perspiration droplets are rolling down her arm and dripping off her elbow. A literal puddle is forming at her feet.
Just absolute panic.
And a deep male voice answers. And she just shoots the script out in a faster-than-a-speeding bullet voice. She completely forgets to pause for his ascent. She just fires it all off in one breathless, terrifying rush.
And the twist, this is the best part when the guy on the other end pauses and then says, "Oh, that's great. I'd love to. I'll pick you up at 7:30. My name is Donnie."
Yes.
She didn't even get Eugene. She poured all that anxiety out on a total stranger.
But that is where the magic of the story lies.
Yeah.
Donnie turned out to be the best date she had that decade.
Really?
Yeah, he had buck teeth, tousled red hair, and communication skills that put her instantly at ease. He took full responsibility for tricking her into the invitation, and he made her comfortable as they chatted. He started with simple small talk, then gradually led her into subjects she was interested in. Donnie understood the assignment.
Here is where it gets really interesting to me. The analogy here is that these communication strategies we're discussing today, they are the antidotes to that norepinephrine.
Precisely.
Having a mental structure of a conversation is like having that script in your hand when your brain completely freezes. When the adrenaline spikes and you lose your ability to be a spontaneous, charming human being, the framework catches you. It bypasses the fear.
That is a phenomenal synthesis. The brain manufactures the fear, but consciously deploying a structured approach manufactures the cure. And the very first conceptual shift you have to make is understanding what small talk actually is.
Okay, what is it then?
Well, most highly intelligent people hate small talk because they think it's a pointless exchange of facts. They view it as a waste of cognitive bandwidth. But it is not about facts. It's not about words. It is about music. It's about melody.
Music, not words. Okay, I need to tell the elevator full of men sans story because this perfectly highlights how getting the facts right but the music wrong completely destroys a conversation.
It's a brilliant example.
So the author was at a party, feeling very sluggish and tired. She gets into an elevator packed with other partygoers who happen to belong to Mensa, the high IQ society.
Right.
As the elevator slowly moves, it gives several sleepy jerks. In a very sluggish, low-energy state, she just makes a lazy throwaway comment to fill the silence. She says, the lift seems a little flaky.
A classic small talk opening. It is a bid for connection, not a request for a schematic diagram.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the Mensons, feeling compelled to exhibit their 132-plus IQs, they pounce on this comment with a thunderous high-energy explanation.
Oh, no.
One announces, "It's obviously got poor railguide alignment." Another declares, "The relay contact is not made up."
So intense.
She suddenly felt like a grasshopper trapped in a stereo speaker. The attack of the mental giants, she couldn't wait to escape, and she wonders afterward, why did I have such an adverse reaction? Their answers were factually interesting.
Her adverse reaction was due to a profound mood mismatch.
A mood mismatch.
Yeah, it was too much, too soon. Their high energy and intensity jarred her sluggish state. If we look at the evolutionary purpose of small talk, it is akin to primates grooming each other, or cats purring, or children humming.
Just making noises.
Exactly, making comforting noises to signal safety. You must first match your listener's mood. Like repeating the note on a music teacher's harmonica, you have to pick up on their tone of voice and duplicate it. Are they adagio or allegro?
Right. Are they moving slowly and thoughtfully, or are they high energy and fast-paced? If you're late, rushing to a meeting, your adrenaline is pumping, and someone stops you in the hallway and starts lazily narrating a long, languorous story about their weekend, you want to strangle them.
You do.
It does not matter how interesting the tale is, the music is wrong.
If the Mensons had wanted to connect with her, they could have momentarily matched her lethargic mood by saying softly, "Yes, it is slow, isn't it?"
Just a little agreement.
Right. Then, once the energy levels were equalized, they could have prefaced their information with, "Have you ever been curious why an elevator is slow?" Then she would have welcomed the explanation. It's about equalizing the emotional energy before transferring the intellectual data.
So what does this all mean for the actual words we choose? If the mood is what matters, what if I just genuinely have nothing clever to say to open the conversation?
That's the beauty of it.
I walk up to someone, I match their mood, but my mind is still a totally blank slate. What is the opening line?
This is where we introduce the concept of being prosaic with passion. And the underlying rule here is incredibly liberating. 80% of your listener's impression has absolutely nothing to do with your words anyway.
Right, the posture and the smile we talked about.
Exactly. Therefore, almost anything you say at first is fine, no matter how prosaic, dull, or unoriginal the text is, as long as it has an empathetic mood, a positive demeanor, and passionate delivery.
Prosaic with passion. So I can say something completely boring as long as I say it like I mean it.
Let's look at the story of S.I. Hayakawa, a brilliant scholar, semanticist, and later a U.S. senator. He was at a gathering where he met a man from Wisconsin. Hayakawa used completely unoriginal, banal small talk.
What did he say?
He said with genuine feeling, "Terrible storms. I hope your folks aren't over there while the war is going on." It was during a time when hundreds of radio commentators were saying the exact same thing. It wasn't witty. It wasn't wildly informed.
But the delivery.
The delivery was everything. He delivered it with profound sincerity and passion. Because the remark sounded familiar and was empathetic, it was easy to agree with.
Like a safety signal.
Precisely. The Wisconsin man agreed at once with genuine relief. They talked about the man's parents and young sisters in the storm area. Hayakawa was sympathetic. Within 10 minutes, this couple, who initially might have suspected Hayakawa of being a Japanese spy, given the historical context of World War II paranoia,
Wow, yeah.
they invited him to visit them in their city and have dinner in their home. All because of a brilliant scholar's admittedly common and unoriginal small talk.
That is staggering. The banal small talk actually functioned as a safety signal. If he had come up with some razor-sharp, highly intellectual, completely original observation about the barometric pressure of the storms,
It might have been alienating.
it might have triggered their defenses. But by saying something common, with deep empathy, he signaled, I am part of your tribe. I care about your feelings.
You are hitting on the core mechanism.
Yeah.
You don't want to rush it. If you rush in with cleverness, you seem like you're showing off, like the menzons in the elevator. The bottom line on your first words is to have the courage of your own triteness.
I love that. Have the courage of your own triteness.
I'm going to put that on a t-shirt.
People tune into your tone much more than your text.
But wait, there's one major exception to this say anything rule, right? The anything except liverwurst rule.
Yes. The Dottie rule. The author talks about Dottie, a woman in her office who often stayed at her desk to work through lunch. The author would ask, hey, Dottie, what can I bring you back for lunch? And Dottie would invariably say, oh, anything is fine with me, which is infuriating. Tell me what you want. Ham and cheese, turkey, a salad.
It forces the other person to do the cognitive labor of guessing. Sometimes the author would think, I'll bring her liverwurst. That'll teach her.
That's amazing.
Eventually, Dottie started saying, anything except liverwurst, that is. And that provides the perfect metaphor for the one absolute rule of first words. Anything you say is fine, as long as it is not complaining, rude, or unpleasant.
Because if your first word is a complaint, blam, people instantly label you a complainer.
If we look at this sociologically, a complaint is a tribal threat. When you meet someone new, that complaint is your new acquaintance's 100% sampling of you so far.
That's a scary thought.
You could be the happiest, most optimistic, philanthropic person on the planet, but how will they know? If your first comment is a complaint about the weather, you are a griper. If your first words are rude to a waiter, you are a creep. If your first words are unpleasant, you are labeled a stinker for life.
So you walk up to someone, you match to their mood, you look around, and instead of saying, wow, the service here is terribly slow, which is a complaint, you just look at the buffet and say, with genuine passion, the spread they put out is absolutely beautiful, isn't it?
You are prosaic, you are passionate, and you are positive. That is the biological and emotional foundation of moving from silence to speech.
Okay, let's look at the mechanics of actually getting into the physical space to use these opening lines. Because knowing what to say is great, but what if you're at a party? Everyone is already in a tightly formed little circle. There is no host in sight to introduce you, and no one is wearing a what's-it.
The what's-it. We should briefly define that for context.
Good idea.
A what's-it is an unusual object you wear or carry, a unique pen, a strange pocket watch, an interesting piece of jewelry whose sole purpose is to give strangers an excuse to approach you and say, excuse me, What is that?
It's like a wearable conversation starter.
Yes, it lowers the barrier of entry for others.
Right. So let's say no one is wearing a what's it. There is no host. You're totally on your own, and there is a group of people you absolutely must meet. How do you physically break into that circle without looking like a complete weirdo?
You adopt the mindset of a political operative.
Oh, I like this.
The text notes that no obstacle blocks the resolute politician. They always have a trick up their sleeve.
Hmm.
In a pinch, they resort to a fascinating infiltration tactic. They essentially eavesdrop their way in.
It conjures images of clandestine activities, wiretapping, spies skulking in the shadows.
It does. It requires an understanding of spatial dynamics, proxemics. You simply stand near the group you wish to infiltrate. You physically close the distance, putting yourself just on the periphery of their circle.
And then,
You open your ears and you eavesdrop. You wait for a flimsy excuse, a word or two that you can use as a wedge, and you jump right in with the phrase, "Excuse me, I couldn't help it over here."
oh, I see. Excuse me. I couldn't help but overhear your discussion of Bermuda. I'm going there next month for the first time. Any suggestions?
Now, the internal fear we all have is, will they be taken aback? Yes, momentarily. Will they get over it?
Yeah.
Momentarily. Will you be in the conversation? Absolutely.
It is brute forcing your way in, but wrapping it in polite curiosity.
Exactly.
But here is where my anxiety kicks in. Let's say I successfully eavesdrop in. I am in the circle, they part the seas, they turn to me, and my mind goes completely blank. I don't have a what's it, they don't have a what's it, I don't know anything about Bermuda. What is my backup parachute?
Your backup parachute is preparation. The text asks a very piercing question. When going to a gathering with great networking possibilities, you naturally plan your outfit.
Sure.
To make sure your shoes match, you puff your hair, you pack your business cards, but you forget the most important thing. You leave the house with a naked mind.
A naked mind. We spend 45 minutes deciding between the blue tie or the red tie, but 0 minutes deciding what we're actually going to talk about.
We just assume inspiration will miraculously strike the moment we face a group of expectant, smiling faces.
And as we have established, when the norepinephrine hits, inspiration is the very first thing to vanish.
The cognitive load of panic wipes your working memory clean. The best way to ensure you are conversationally armored is to listen to a newscast or scan the daily newspaper just before you leave. Anything that happened today is good material. It provides an immediate, universally accessible topic.
It is an offensive and a defensive move, right?
Offensively, it pulverizes into great conversational fodder, no matter what crowd you're circulating in: fires, floods, air disasters, stock market crashes. Defensively, it rescues you from putting your foot in your mouth by asking what everybody is talking about.
That's so true.
It prevents you from seeming completely out of touch with the reality of the day.
There is a fascinating and slightly scandalous example in the text about this. Sydney Biddle Barrows, the famed Mayflower Madam.
A businesswoman in what the text delicately calls the world's oldest profession.
She ran a high-end escort service in New York, and she implemented a strict corporate policy for her, quote, independent contractors.
A house rule.
Right. Feedback from her employees revealed that a staggering 60% of their work hour was spent simply chatting. Only 40% was spent satisfying the customer's other needs. So Sydney instructed all her female independent contractors to keep up with the daily news so they could be good conversationalists.
She literally required them to read the daily newspaper or listen to a radio broadcast before leaving for an appointment.
Yes.
If we look at the sociological implications of that, it is profound. It highlights the nature of emotional labor. The clients were paying for intimacy, and true intimacy requires intellectual engagement, not just physical presence.
So it worked.
Her business increased significantly. Reports came back from her clients complimenting her on the fascinating women she had working for her. The clients were utterly captivated not just by their physical appearance, but by their ability to engage in relevant current conversation. It's a stark reminder that preparation pays off, regardless of the industry.
That is wild. It proves that being interesting isn't some magical genetic trait. It is just doing your homework. If you read the news for 10 minutes, you're suddenly a fascinating conversationalist.
Preparation over inspiration.
But wait, we've talked about eavesdropping and reading the news, which are great tactics when you are flying solo. But what about when things are supposedly handled properly? What about introductions? Because the book makes a really strong case that the way most of us introduce people actually sets them up for catastrophic social failure.
It does. Eavesdropping works in a pinch, but introductions are the standard way conversations begin in civilized society. However, as Lowndes points out, most people use what she calls the naked introduction, and it is a conversational death sentence.
It sounds like this. Susan, I'd like you to meet John Smith. John, this is Susan Jones. And then silence.
The text describes the newly introduced people as newly emets, fluttering their fins and fishing for a topic like big clams. They are left with absolutely nothing to sink their teeth into.
So John is forced to say something agonizingly dull like, Smith, that's S-M-I-T-H, isn't it?
And Susan has to reply, golly, Susan, well, now there's an interesting name.
It is painful because the person doing the introducing cast out a line with no bait. They literally just abandoned John and Susan in the middle of a social desert.
It is a failure of social facilitation. Big winners, top communicators, they make sure conversation never dies unwillingly in their midst. When they introduce people, they buy an insurance policy on the conversation by adding a few simple add-ons.
They bite the conversational hook.
They bait the hook. They provide a designated place in the conversation.
Okay, so instead of just giving names, you give them a thread to pull. For example, Susan, I'd like you to meet John. John has a wonderful boat we took a trip on last summer. John, this is Susan Smith. Susan is editor-in-chief of Shoestring Gourmet magazine.
The cognitive load on John and Susan plummets. Now, Susan can ask John what kind of boat he has, where they went on the trip. John can ask Susan about cooking, editing, restaurants, diets.
The conversation naturally expands to travel, recipes, budgets. It goes to infinity.
Exactly.
But there is a nuance here. What if you aren't comfortable mentioning someone's job during the introduction? Maybe it's a purely social setting, or their job isn't something they want to discuss.
The text offers an alternative. Mention their hobby or even a talent. There's the story of Gilbert the sculptor.
Oh.
The author was at a gathering, and the hostess introduced a man named Gilbert by saying, Leil, I'd like you to meet Gilbert. Gilbert's gift is sculpting. He makes beautiful wax carvings. The author specifically noted that using the word gift was a lovely way to introduce someone.
It elevates the individual immediately.
It does.
Okay, let me push back on this for a second. Let's really debate this. Because if I'm at a casual backyard barbecue holding a red plastic cup and I walk up to two friends and say, hey, Dave, meet Sarah. Sarah's gift is amateur taxidermy. Dave, Sarah's passion is spreadsheet optimization. Doesn't that feel, incredibly formal? Like I'm a museum curator introducing historical artifacts. It feels a bit stiff.
It's a fair critique. And context is always king. The wording gift might feel elevated or stiff depending on whether you're at a gala or a barbecue.
Yeah.
But we have to look past the specific vocabulary to the broader implication of what the technique is doing.
Which is what?
A good introduction doesn't just identify a person's legal name. It provides a conversational life raft. It lowers the barrier to entry. If gift feels too formal, you adjust the tone, but you absolutely must keep the bait.
So it's about the function, not the exact phrasing. I could say, Dave, meet Sarah. She makes the most insane wax sculptures I've ever seen. Sarah, Dave just got back from a disaster of a camping trip.
That's perfect. You've provided the hook. You have saved them from the dreaded, so what do? Interrogation?
Okay, so we've eavesdropped, or we've been introduced with a beautifully baited hook. The conversation has started. Words are flowing. But how do you keep it going without feeling like you're a detective conducting a relentless interrogation? You know that feeling when it's just question, answer, question, answer. Where are you from? Ohio. What do you do? Accounting. Do you like it? It's fine.
It is exhausting.
It's so exhausting.
It is exhausting because you're trying to invent the next topic out of thin air, which requires massive cognitive effort. To elevate the conversation from an interrogation to an effortless flow, you have to transition into being a word detective.
A word detective.
Yes, you have to listen for what the other person actually wants to talk about.
A conversational Sherlock Holmes. I love this concept. The idea is that people are constantly slipping clues into their sentences about what they secretly want to discuss, but we usually ignore them because we're too busy thinking about our next brilliant question.
We miss the clues right in front of us.
Let's look at the Mrs. Otis anecdote, because this perfectly crystallizes the mistake we all make. So the author had a young friend, Nancy, who worked in a nursing home. Nancy cared deeply about her elderly patients, but she found some of them crotchety and laconic. She specifically complained about an old woman named Mrs. Otis who would never open up.
Okay.
Nancy said, right after all those rainstorms we had last week, just to make conversation, I remarked to Mrs. Otis, terrible storms we had last week, don't you think?
A classic prosaic opening line, just like S.I. Hayakawa.
Exactly. But Mrs. Otis responded in a snippy voice, it's been good for the plants. And Nancy felt cut off. She thought Mrs. Otis was just shutting down the conversation.
But Nancy missed the clue entirely.
She totally did.
When she told this story to the author immediately saw the hidden door. She asked, "Did you ever think to ask Mrs. Otis if she liked plants?" Nancy was confused. "Plants?" she asked. The author explained, "Yes, Mrs. Otis brought the subject up." She begged Nancy to do her a favor and just ask cantankerous old Mrs. Otis if she liked plants.
And the result was incredible. The next day, a flabbergasted Nancy called the author from work. Not only did Mrs. Otis love plants, she had been married to a gardener.
Wow.
Suddenly, Nancy had a different problem. She couldn't shut Mrs. Otis up. She went on and on about her garden, her husband, her entire life.
Let's break down the mechanics of why this works. Why did Mrs. Otis mention the plants? Top communicators know that ideas do not come out of nowhere. If Mrs. Otis thought to bring up plants in response to a comment about the rain, she must have some deep emotional relationship with them.
That makes sense.
Furthermore, by mentioning the word, it meant subconsciously she wanted to talk about plants. It's almost like a Freudian slip of desire.
It's a subconscious invitation, and the book explores alternative scenarios to really drive this home. What if, instead of saying, "It's good for the plants," Mrs. Otis had said, "Because of the rain, my dog couldn't go out"?
Then Nancy should have immediately asked about her dog. What kind of dog? How long has she had it?
Or what if she grumbled, "It's bad for my arthritis"?
Then she desperately wants to talk about her health. When talking with anyone, you keep your ears open and, like a good detective, listen for clues. You are on the lookout for any unusual references, an anomaly, a deviation, a digression, or an invocation of another place, time, or person.
You ask about it because it's the clue to what your conversation partner would really enjoy discussing.
Exactly.
Conversation becomes effortless when you stop trying to invent the next topic and just use the magnifying glass on the clues already in front of you. If someone casually mentions, "Oh, I was playing squash the other day when I heard that news," they don't just want to talk about the news, they want you to ask about squash.
And here is the beautiful trick. There's no need to be a squash player yourself to pipe up with enthusiasm. You simply pick up on the reference as though it excites you too, and it parlays you into conversation the stranger thrills to.
Even if the subject of squash puts your feet to sleep. Because it's not about the squash, it is about making them feel heard. Which brings us to the most potent pivot in the entire section. We've got momentum now, we're reading their clues, the conversation is flowing.
Right.
But wait, you can't make the conversation a truly deep exchange if you don't shift the spotlight. How do you elevate it from just a pleasant chat into an interaction where the other person feels entirely, completely captivated by you? You make it about them.
This is the core of communication. And to fully grasp it, we have to look at the psychology of human self-centeredness. The text makes a profound observation about our developmental psychology. As infants, we thought we were the literal center of the universe.
Oh, babies definitely do.
Nothing mattered but me, myself, and I. The rest of the shadowy forms stirring about us existed solely for what they could do for us.
Right. Babies are complete, unapologetic narcissists. Feed me, change me, hold me. I am the sun. You are the planets.
And big winners know that, fundamentally, our primal brains haven't changed a bit. Adults camouflage their self-centeredness under a mask of civilization and politeness. We learn to wait our turn to speak. But our brains still immediately, instinctively, unfailingly translate everything we hear into terms of, how does that affect me?
Every single action, every single word, how does that affect me? So how do we leverage that biological reality in conversation?
By using a three-letter word that the text claims is more potent than sex to get people's attention. The word you.
Communication. Give me some examples of how shifting just a few words changes the entire dynamic of an interaction.
Suppose you're giving a talk and a participant asks a question. The standard polite response is, "That's a good question." But consider how much better he feels, how his ego lights up when you tell him, "You've asked a good question."
It shifts from complimenting the abstract concept of the question to complimenting the person.
Salespeople are trained to do this constantly. Instead of saying, "It's important that," they convince prospects by saying, "You'll see the importance of." When negotiating, instead of, "The result will be," let them know, "You'll see the result when you're."
It's all about them.
It enriches social conversation, too. If a woman says, "I like your suit," that's nice. But if she says, "You look great in that suit," it provides much warmer feelings.
The focus is entirely on them. And the author tested this out in the real world with the Golden Gate Bridge experiment, which I find absolutely hilarious.
Oh, this is a great one.
So she was driving around San Francisco, hopelessly lost. She asked people walking along the sidewalk how to get to the Golden Gate Bridge. She stopped a couple trudging up a hill, called out the window, "Excuse me, I can't find the Golden Gate Bridge."
Notice the phrasing. An I statement.
Right. And the pair looked at each other, shrugged with that. "How stupid can these tourists get?" Look, and the husband just mumbled, pointing straight ahead. That direction. Minimal effort. They didn't care about her problem.
Of course not.
So she tries again with the next couple. "Excuse me, where's the Golden Gate Bridge?" Again, a neutral statement. Without smiling, they just pointed in the opposite direction. Then she decided to try communication. When she came upon the next strolling couple, she called out, "Excuse me, could you tell me where the Golden Gate Bridge is?"
And the behavioral shift was immediate.
They answered her question literally. "Of course," they said, because by phrasing the question that way, it was a subtle challenge. She was asking, in essence, "Are you able to give me directions?" This hits them right in the pride button.
It appeals to their ego.
They walked over to her car, leaned in, and gave her explicit, helpful instructions. She tested it a few more times and confirmed, "This you stuff really works. You are essentially hacking their ego. Are you the kind of capable person who can solve this problem?" Of course they want to be that person.
But to truly keep the other person at the center of the universe, you can't just throw the word you around without actually understanding their world. If they were a real estate broker and you only know about tech, focusing on them will quickly expose your ignorance.
Yeah, that would backfire.
How do we bridge that gap? This leads us to the concept of reading their rags.
This is about expanding your warfus before you even meet them.
If you want to communicate on their terms, you need a baseline vocabulary of their world. This strategy is about familiarizing yourself with other worlds so you can discuss anything with anybody, no matter how little you have in common.
The suggestion is so simple but so unnatural for most of us. Tomorrow, when you get your newspaper or load up your news app, turn to a section you hardly ever read.
Do you usually flip to international news? The fashion section? Sports? Entertainment? Tomorrow, don't. Turn to a section you usually ignore. How about the real estate section?
I never read that.
Most people don't. You might find it yawningly dull, but sooner or later, you're going to find yourself with a group of people who are discussing properties, deals, and today's market. Scanning the real estate section just once every few weeks will keep you au courant with their conversation.
Or the advertising column. You might think the world would be better off without Madison Avenue, but reading it means you can hold your own discussing matters with someone in that field. It's about gathering just enough gobbledygook insider language to ask the right opening questions and get them talking about their world.
If we look at this through the lens of sociology, we are talking about shibboleths. A shibboleth is a custom, principle, or belief distinguishing a particular class or group of people. Jargon is a shibboleth.
Right.
When you use a group's specific terminology, you are signaling to their primal brain, "I am not an outsider. I respect your tribe enough to learn your language." It is a profound act of social validation.
It's all about making the other person feel that you see them, that you value their expertise, and that you're genuinely curious about the things that matter to them. Okay, let's take a beat and look at where we are. We have gone from terrifying silence to passionate but prosaic small talk, to eavesdropping, to reading clues, to making them the center of the universe by learning their jargon. We are officially engaging conversationalists.
We've built the foundation.
But there is one final crucial step in this delicate transition. How do we take this engaging chat and accelerate it? How do we create the sensation of a long-term intimate friendship with someone we literally just met?
This is where we cross into the deepest psychological waters of the book, the concept of the premature we. To understand why this works, we first have to look at the 4 levels of conversational progression that naturally unfold as people become closer.
The 4 levels of intimacy, I'll break these down because they're so recognizable. Level 1 is cliches. 2 strangers talking together primarily toss cliches back and forth. Beautiful sunny weather we've been having, or boy, some rain, huh?
Yes, I Hayakawa special. Safe tribal noise.
Exactly. Level 2 is facts. People who know each other but are just acquaintances often discuss facts. You know, Joe, we've had twice as many sunny days this year to date as last. Or, yeah, well, we finally decided to put in a swimming pool to beat the heat. Still pretty dry. Safe.
Very factual.
Then we move to level 3. Feelings and personal questions. When people become friends, they express their feelings to each other, even on dull subjects like the weather. "George, I just love these sunny days." They also ask each other personal questions. "How about you, Betty? Are you a sun person?"
So we have gone from cliches to facts to feelings, but where does true intimacy live?
It lives in level 4, we's statements. This is the highest level of verbal intimacy. It creates more rapport than feelings. It's we and us statements. Friends discussing the weather might say, if we keep having this good weather, it'll be a great summer. Lovers might say, I hope this good weather keeps up for us so we can go swimming on our trip.
The word we fosters togetherness.
It makes the listener feel connected. It gives a subliminal feeling of you and me against the cold, cold world.
And the strategy, is to scramble their psychological signals. By just eavesdropping for a few moments on any two people chatting, you could tell a lot about their relationship just by listening for these levels. You wouldn't need to hear them whisper dear or sweetheart. You could be blindfolded and tell they were close just by the we statements.
Wow.
So the technique is to skip conversational levels 1 and 2 entirely. Jump straight to levels 3 and 4.
You elicit intimate feelings by using the magic words we, us, and our prematurely. You can use it in casual conversation to cut through the distance. At a party, you might say to someone standing behind you at the buffet line, hey, this looks great. They really laid out a nice spread for us.
It creates an instant bond.
Or, uh-oh, we're going to get fat if we let ourselves enjoy all of this. Instead of I'm going to get fat, it's we're going to get fat. You are instantly on a team. You are co-conspirators at the buffet line.
Ask a prospect their feelings on something the way you would query a friend. George, how do you feel about the new governor? Then use the pronoun we when discussing anything that might affect the two of you. Do you think we're going to prosper during his administration? Or, I think we'll survive while the governor's in office.
Okay, here is where I have to push back. I really have to challenge this because my warning bells are going off.
Let's hear it.
Using we with a total stranger at a buffet line, plotting an introduction with baited hooks, feigning interest in the real estate section just so I can talk to a broker. Doesn't this run the risk of feeling incredibly fake? Doesn't it feel overly planned or even manipulative? We are talking about scrambling people's psychological signals.
That's a very common reaction.
If someone I don't know walks up to me and says, we are going to get fat, part of me feels like they're crossing a boundary. It borders on creepy.
It is the most important question to ask when studying any communication strategies, and we must deeply debate the fine line between social facilitation and unearned intimacy.
Yeah.
Yes, these techniques can be shallow. If your goal is to manipulate someone, to extract money from them, or to deceive them into thinking you share values that you don't, then yes, it is manipulative, boundary crossing, and ultimately hollow. People will eventually sense the incongruity.
Because earlier the book said your body shrieks your autobiography. If you are deeply deceptive, your micro-expressions will eventually betray the premature we. Your eyes won't match your inclusive language.
That aligns perfectly with the research on microexpressions. But let's go back to the biology we discussed earlier. The fear, the norepinephrine, the spaghetti legs and the sweaty palms. We are naturally biologically wired to be terrified of strangers.
We are.
We default to self-preservation, to the naked introduction, to the selfish I statements, to the boring cliches. We do this not because we're bad people or because we don't want connection, but because we are scared. The modern loneliness epidemic is proof that we are starved for intimacy, yet utterly terrified of initiating it.
We're all just hiding under the kindergarten table.
Precisely why these techniques are not tools of deception. They are tools of facilitation. They bypass our natural social anxieties. Having a structured way to introduce two people isn't manipulative. It is a profound act of social generosity. It saves them from the agony of silence.
That's a good point.
Using we with a stranger at a buffet line isn't trying to trick them into marrying you. It is a momentary, playful dissolution of the invisible walls that keep us all so isolated in public spaces.
So the technique is the scaffolding. It holds the building up, providing structure and safety until the real foundation of genuine connection can be poured.
Beautifully put. They allow us to be more attentive, less self-conscious, and ultimately more generous in conversation. The goal isn't to hack their brain for your own gain. The goal is to make the other person feel noticed, comfortable, and safe enough to step into the conversation with you.
That reframing changes everything. It's about generosity. And if you want the ultimate proof of authenticity, the ultimate unmanipulative compliment, that brings us to our final concept for today. Grapevine glory. This is how you prove you aren't just using cheap tricks or empty flattery.
No risk praise. The author quotes Thomas Fuller, "He's my friend that speaks well of me behind my back." We are much more apt to trust someone who says nice things about us when we aren't listening than someone who flatters us to our face.
Because face-to-face flattery always carries that slight suspicion. If someone walks up to me and says, "You are brilliant," my immediate subconscious thought is, What do they want from me? Are they apple polishing? Are they trying to win brownie points?
The psychology of overheard praise versus direct flattery is fascinating. Direct flattery triggers our skepticism because the transaction is obvious. But how do you deliver a compliment that completely escapes that suspicion? You don't tell the person directly, you tell a friend. You use the grapevine.
The carrier pigeon. I'll walk us through the Jane Smith example. Suppose you want to be in the good graces of Jane Smith. Don't directly compliment Jane. Go to her close associate, Diane Doe, and say, Jane is a very dynamic woman. She said something so brilliant in the meeting the other day. Someday she'll be running this company.
You just drop that little golden nugget right in Diane's lap.
And you place 10-to-1 odds your comment will get back to Jane via the grapevine in 24 hours. Diane will absolutely tell her friend, you should hear what so-and-so said about you the other day. A compliment one hears is never as exciting as the one he overhears.
It leaves the recipient with a happy fantasy that you're telling the whole world about their greatness. When you give grapevine glory to Jane, Diane becomes the carrier pigeon of that compliment.
Right.
It is praise without the risk of looking like a sycophant. It is pure, authentic generosity released into the social ecosystem.
It is brilliant. It's like planting a seed of goodwill and just letting the social network water it for you. And when Jane finally sees you again, she already feels a massive sense of warmth and intimacy toward you, and she doesn't even consciously know why.
It's powerful stuff.
Okay, let's pull all of this together. Let's connect all the dots of this massive deep dive. We started with the absolute terror of the first word, the biochemistry of fear. And what we have discovered is that moving from silence to speech is not about performing. It is not about having the wittiest comeback or the most profound observation.
If we look at the entire structure of this section, Lowndes is showing us that the beginning of a conversation is simply about creating warmth, providing direction, and offering enough deep attention for the other person to comfortably step into the exchange with you. You match their mood, you are prosaic with passion, you give them a baited hook, you listen for their clues, you make it about them.
You're building a bridge for them to cross. And that leaves me with the final provocative thought for you listening right now. What if you went through your entire day tomorrow, treating every single interaction, even the barista, even the security guard, even that new colleague you've been avoiding, as if you were already at level 4 of intimacy?
Imagine that.
What if you consciously used a we statement? And more importantly, what if you actively listened for the plants in their sentences? What if you assumed that every weird little digression they made was a secret invitation into their world?
It would completely transform the way you experience the people around you. You would stop seeing strangers as tribal threats that trigger your norepinephrine and start seeing them as mysteries waiting for a word detective.
It is a game changer. So what happens after we have built this bridge? We successfully navigated the opening moments. The conversation is flowing. In our next deep dive, we are going to move past the intro and dive into how Lowndes develops the conversation once it is established, teaching us to speak the secret language of insiders and truly master the human jungle.
It is a fascinating progression from opening the door to actually walking around inside their world.
I cannot wait. But until then, remember that first feeling we talked about. That dread of standing in the silent room with your lukewarm beverage. The next time you find yourself there, remember, you don't need a brilliant script. You don't need to be a genius. You just need to look at the person next to you, find your passion, and have the courage of your own triteness. See you next time.